morning from Vietnam. Good afternoon to you, David. Thanks a lot for spending your afternoon joining and sharing your stories, uh, your insights on the topic of wisdom. And on behalf of the listeners around the world, we want to say thank you to you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you again.
Hey. So I will come to the US maybe early of 2025. I hope that I have a chance to swing by to LA and have a cup of coffee together. That would be a wonderful day. Okay.
That would be great.
The topic of today is about aging, about wisdom, and in earlier conversation, I told you I don't know why we start this conversation. It's just a topic worth sharing. The idea is worth sharing. So let's start small, and then we're gonna exchange more during the conversation like we did last time. Shall we?
Let's do it.
All right, and I want to start with the simple things first. Is a definition of wisdom, because each of us will have a different definition of wisdom in our own, like our own thinking. Okay, so for David, what is your definition of wisdom?
I think that wisdom is intelligence learned through experience. That's one piece of wisdom, and then the other piece that might be a working definition for wisdom is the time between. This is sort of like what Viktor Frankl talks about, the time between something happening and our reaction to that thing happening. That space here is wisdom.
Wow. There could be so many things to define wisdom. So why did you decide to put wisdom into that two options, two things?
Well, I guess those two buckets are about experience. That I might have a knowledge of something. I might have a knowledge of something that I read in a book. But until I feel that experience, until I either make the big mistake or have the interaction with another human being that gets to test the hypothesis, that gets to test the learning that came from the book, when I have that experience, then that knowledge goes from knowledge to wisdom, because the experience either corroborates the information, or it refutes the information, or it deepens the information and expands it. Like it wasn't just what I saw in the book; it was actually more, and that gives me inner knowing, personal knowing of the information, as opposed to just understanding what I'm reading. I think there's a personal connection to wisdom that is connected to one's own experience of it.
Beautiful. So the purpose of this conversation today, we will be expanding the capacity for us to bridge between the knowledge into experience. That's first, and the second is how to expand the space, like you said, the Viktor Frankl. So how can we expand that space so that we can respond wisely instead of reacting to situations? Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I'm curious though, how does my working definition of wisdom compare to the one in Vietnam?
Oh, I haven't interviewed anyone from Vietnam yet.
Okay.
I need to interview about 27. You are the 28th person, and each of you have different definition of wisdom. But in terms of the one common thing is the experience, from knowledge to experience. So that is, I think that's the one thing that come across many people that I interview, similar one. All right. So I think that a lot of people thought that having knowledge is wisdom. But it's, in your own definition, having knowledge is yet becoming wisdom. So how can we bring knowledge into experience to make it, make us wiser?
So if I understand the question correctly, is how do we take the knowledge and turn it into experience so that it can grow into wisdom?
Yes.
Well, I think one of the things that comes to mind for me, and one of the things that I enjoy so much about our conversations, is your curiosity. You know, the beginner's mind, the feeling of I'm just wanting to learn something new. I just want to explore this with you. I think that's a big one, and that takes a certain amount of courage and also openness and the letting down of one's ego to say, well, I don't know. I read it in a book, but I would like to experience it for myself to know whether it's true. And I'm also open to it being more than that, or like to not make assumptions in any given situation, whether it's something that I read about or didn't read about. If the question is being asked of me, or I'm being challenged, or I'm in a situation that's difficult, can I be open-minded? Can I have beginner's mind? Can I just say, I don't know, but I'm willing to explore that with you so that I can have that experience?
Wow. So how can we let go of our ego and open ourselves up for more information and more knowledge?
Yeah, I think I just read this the other day, and unfortunately I can't remember the third one, but there's three sentences that we should use more often. And I know two of them. I remember two of them. The first one is I don't know, and the second one is I changed my mind.
I changed my mind. Why I changed my mind is the second one. Tell us
Well,
more about that.
because when we're young, or even when we're older, we have an idea of things,
Hmm.
right? We have an idea of whether we believe in something or we don't believe in something, whether something is good or something is bad. And as we grow older, as we have more experience, as we have more life interactions with people, we realize that it might not be one or the other. It might be a little bit in between. And so I changed my mind is a great way for somebody to be able to say courageously, I thought something for my whole life, but now I realize it's not that. And I think maybe I think differently about that now.
I don't know, right? And then I'll change my mind.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you don't remember exactly the third sentence was, but if you can feel it with anything, what would be that third sentence in your word?
The third one would be, I don't know, I changed my mind. And what do you think?
What do you think? So you put them all back together. Hey, well, I think you mentioned about the word curiosity is very important because that's how we explore options. We explore the availability and so what could we do to grow the curiosity inside each of us, David?
Um, One of my teachers was fond of saying that the beginning of wisdom is skepticism. And I love this idea, and skepticism from the perspective of, well, maybe I don't know. Maybe that's not right. Maybe it's different than I think. That skepticism allows us to be open to changing our mind or to foster curiosity. Because if maybe I'm wrong, then the flip of that is I wonder what it might be. And if right, and so if we have I wonder what it might be as our guide, we are naturally open to curiosity. I remember when I was little, I would go for a drive with my dad on the weekend, and he always put on the CBC radio, the Canadian Broadcasting Company, and the news would be playing, and then he would look over at me and he would say, "Do you know what that means?" And I would say, "What?" And he said, "What they're talking about." And I say, "Well, what are they talking about?" Because I wasn't listening to the news. I was 8 years old and I didn't care about the news. But he would say, "Well, they're talking about um, constitutional democracy." And I'd say, no, I don't know what that means. And then he would always say, well, why don't you ask?
Oh.
And sometimes I would be listening and he would say, do you know what that means? And I'd say, you mean constitutional democracy? And he would say, yeah, do you know what that means? And I would say, no. And then he would say, why don't you ask?
Wow.
And then I would say, okay, Dad, what's constitutional democracy? And then he would say, I'll tell you what I know, but then let's go find out some more. And we would get back to his house and we would go and open the encyclopedia and we would look together and we would learn about something. And so
Beautiful.
that's much easier now because you can just take out your phone and you can look it up. And my kids and I do that all the time.
Mm.
They say, well, what's, my son loves to say, what's the biggest elephant? Can you find the biggest elephant? Or can you find the biggest tiger? Or can you find what's the whatever? And we go and we look. And I love, there's times where I want to say, no, I don't want to get on the phone right now. But the fact that he's curious about learning things as a boy is something I want to foster in him and in my daughter too, so that they're always asking questions.
Wow. Your father did a very, very beautiful thing that set up a nurturing a way to create the link between generations, connecting wisdom to one generation from his generation to the next, which is yours. Now that create another link for you to do it for your son and your children. I saw a lot of family they don't have that one. So a lot of in the digital world today, it's sad for me to see at the restaurant where families sit together and the father's on the phone, the mother on the phone, the children are on the phones, instead of having a good conversation and sharing ideas, sharing thoughts and stuff like that, right? So what could we do to have passing the wisdom without judgment, so to create the bonding between, different generations, David?
Well, I don't know if I have the answer for that one because my kids like to also get on the phone in the restaurant too sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. So I would say that all we do is have great conversations. Sometimes we don't. But when we do, I don't know, I guess asking them what they're interested in and then being interested in that too. I have beginner's mind for things that don't even occur to me because my daughter brings home new music that she discovered, or she says she saw something at school, she learned something at school and she wants to explore it more, or she saw something on YouTube that she wants to explore some more. And we learn things together. We learn things about the city that we live in and we go and explore them, or we learn something about a rock band, or we learn something about a natural phenomenon and then we go and explore that. And so it's not just about all the stuff that I know that I want to transfer down to my kids, but it's all the things that they know that I can learn.
So there's two ways.
Yeah, and if I'm open-minded about it, if I'm curious about it too, even when I'm not that interested, it lets them know that they know things that are worth sharing and worth learning about. And sometimes I'm surprised and I find out that that's actually something that I liked more than I thought.
Wow, absolutely, absolutely. Like in my situation, David, I always hated history lessons when I was young, until I do this program, and then I started to meet so many amazing people who their lives integrate into the a piece here and piece there of the history stories. It made me feel like, okay, let's go back to World War I, World War II, and let's go back to the Cuban, American Cuban war, and
Yeah.
to understand the situation. I found I have a love for history more than I thought I did years ago. Oh
Amazing.
yeah. So
I guess sometimes it's about who the teacher is. Because I remember being in elementary school and even high school and hating history also. But when you have history is one of those things that needs a good storyteller. You get into it because somebody told the story in a way that made you get sucked into it. It's the difference between seeing a great movie about about a topic and seeing a mediocre movie about a topic, you walk out of a movie that's great and you want to learn more about the thing. You walk out of a movie that's not great, you're, oh, okay, I learned enough.
So the teacher is very important.
I think so.
Where can we find our teachers to create more wisdom in our life?
Man, they're all around us. What do they say? If when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Isn't that a saying? So I think if we are more looking for people, again, it's like an ego thing, right? When you're really young, you're maybe curious to find a good teacher, and then you find a teacher who becomes a mentor. Could be a sports coach, it could be a teacher at school, could be a priest or a rabbi or an imam or somebody who teaches you about things that resonate. But I think it's about being open and curious. There are teachers everywhere. There are great teachers everywhere. And if you ask somebody a question, you might find that you love the answer. But I don't think that we talk about this a lot in this country, that teachers need to be more appreciated.
Yeah.
And so I think everywhere there are teachers, but we have a tendency in this culture to, if you're a little bit older, you're less cool. And then if you're a lot older, you're even less cool. But with age comes wisdom and stories, and those stories are really interesting if we listen.
You mentioned there's one thing, with age comes wisdom. We're going to come back to that later, because I want to finish the first one is the you said that the intelligent learn through experience, where that's where knowledge, with time, become experience. And there's also the one that the giggle, garbage in, garbage out, right? So we need to also make sure that we don't bring the wrong kind of knowledge into our world. Otherwise, it's becoming in the bad, experience, and it's out of wisdom also. So how can we filter the knowledge, the information get into our life to make sure that we keep the one that needed for our development and delete the rest?
So this is a very complicated issue, as you know, here on a macro level, with social media being what it is, and so much bad information being created on purpose, intentionally, to convince and to persuade people to think things. That's and then those social media platforms not just propagating that bad information, but having a hand in directing the bad information to people, depending on who they are, so that people can live in their own echo chamber, so that people can only hear the things that they want to hear, and what they're hearing may or may not be true. It just fortifies their own belief system so that they don't go anywhere else. Social media platform just wants to keep them there, using their finger to move through stuff. And they get dopamine hits that are based on them experiencing something on their phone that they like and that they agree with and that they feel good about, and it affirms their own belief. And the same thing happens to kids who are either allowed to get on that stuff too early, before their minds are developed and their own ability to question things is developed, and they get addicted to receiving bad information also. So how do we prevent the bad information? I think we don't encourage those systems to keep providing it to us. That's one. As an adult, I don't use social media to get information. And I try to stay away from it as much as possible, because I don't think it makes me a happier person. I don't think it does anything for me. And I don't allow my kids to use it. And anecdotally, my daughter just started middle school this year. And in the summertime, a group of parents got together and said, we're going to not allow our children to have phones, so that when one of our kids comes to us and says, but so-and-so has a phone, so-and-so has a phone, we can say, no, they don't. And so we started the school year with 50 families saying no phones until high school. And so those 50 kids don't have access to that stuff. because they don't have the power to reason through it.
Mm.
And this was motivated by some 12th graders coming to my elementary school, my kids' elementary school, and one kid said, in front of the whole school, my parents allowed me to have a phone and social media, and I wish they hadn't, now that I look back. And another kid who said, my parents didn't allow me to have a cell phone and social media, and I'm glad they didn't.
Ah.
So that was, beyond our own misgivings about allowing our kids to have access to that information. Those kids actually went through it and came back and said, yeah, it wasn't good.
But if that's the case, we only do the prevention, but we're not going to do the curing of that one. So eventually, when they get to high school, they have the phone, or when they get to university, they have their own way to have the phones, right? So I think that if we can do something to help them build the foundation, and and understanding how, because there's a TED talk very beautiful that talk about the human lab. All right, so we say, okay, we create the lab where we test the rats and stuff like that, and the world is like a lab where we are rats, and it's giant companies are running that lab to manipulate, to guide us to where they want to go. So it's best if we don't becoming lab rats in that,
Yes.
in that society and then that experience. So what could we do in a more foundationally to make sure that we not become a part of that experiment, David?
Well, maybe that comes with wisdom, because
Yeah.
because if you keep banging your head against the wall the same way, doing the same thing, and you realize you're not any happier for it, maybe you stop one day banging your head. Just like people realize that the information that they're receiving is not necessarily honest or useful or good, and they stop going to that information source. Or they travel the world and they have different experiences, and you know this so well, being as traveled as you are, that when you go to another country and you visit another lifestyle, another culture, you learn something, and you realize that maybe, or I realized that maybe it's not just the way this is, the way that I perceive it to be, that there are other perspectives that are also very important, and the things that I've become addicted to, the information that I've become addicted to, isn't actually serving me. I know that as more data comes out, as more research is being done on the harmful effects of social media, there will eventually be some level of legislation. There already is starting to become legislation that is, I hope, addressing the fact that our communities are becoming less intelligent, less discerning, less rational, less informed as a result of social media, even though it claims to be this source of information and enlightenment.
You mentioned about a teacher talking about skepticism, right? So be skeptic about everything. I think that is foundational, important for us to ask, questions about information that we receive, to make sure that we're not, we're not going to where the social media lead us to where they want us to be. So there's power of skepticism right there. What can we do to build that, like to leverage that and build it into our life, that is balancing, not too skeptic about things, to be too open to receive information, David?
Yeah, so there's, I think what you're getting at is the difference between skepticism and cynicism.
Oh.
Right? So a skeptic questions. A cynic sort of, nah, that's not gonna be right. For sure, I'm not gonna agree with that. I'm not even gonna try that. A skeptic says, well, maybe there's something else to be learned here. Maybe it's not quite right. And how do we do that? Well, one of the things that that my wife and I try to impart to our kids is to trust their gut, because the gut doesn't lie. The belly tells you something, the heart tells you something, and it may be different than what the mind tells us, and to trust that voice. The idea that there is a flap in the throat, and when the heart tries to speak, the flap says shut up, and the brain is the one controlling the flap that says shut up, you're going to sound stupid, or you're going to be foolish, or nobody wants to hear that. But this knows the truth. And so if somebody is learning something, reading something, and it doesn't feel true or right, maybe they should take that as a sign to do some more research, follow the money, so to speak, figure out who's telling that story, what might be their motivation for telling that story. There's so much bad information, but it's actually not that hard to figure out where it's coming from, and if it's coming from a bad place, it's probably bad information.
Yeah.
But we are like we're like goats just sitting there eating it. We don't question what it is. We just eat it because it's there.
Yeah. They said there are three brains, right? Our brain is one, our heart is another second brain, and the gut is the third brain. So when you said that your wife and you trying to encourage your children to cultivate the feelings from the guts, right? What do you do to create that space for them to have that experience?
Well, I think just talking to them. And so they come home from their day at school, and they've had experiences, some great experiences and some bad experiences, and when they want to share those experiences, we ask questions because we want to be curious about those experiences. So what was that like for you? And what did that make you think? And what do you think you could do differently? Or what would you do if that happened again? Or, why do you think that person reacted that way? And all of those conversations allow somebody to check in and say, well, allows my kids to say, let me think about that for a second. Let me feel that for a second. If somebody was mean to my kid, my first reaction is, "Ooh, I want to get that other kid." But I also want to leave a space open for maybe that kid was having a bad day. Maybe that kid's dad or mom is traveling on business all the time and never home. Maybe they have a sick grandma. Maybe they had a bad day. Wow. Maybe the bully was just bullied by somebody else. And so if we feel into that, we cultivate compassion. And I think if our kids feel into that, they also can cultivate empathy or compassion for somebody else.
So that leading to the second part of this conversation about the space, the space for us to form our decision or our response before we, and earlier when you said knowledge to experience is become let go of the ego, because I'm trying to read it here. So the curiosity, the ego, and the third one is important in here. I know that he is having the courage to do something with that. All right. So before we get into the space, let's talk about courage a little bit. So if we know the knowledge is right, and we want to put it into the experience, somebody with just having the knowledge, but then taking action is something that they're hesitating or not even doing it. So it will never become, how they, become reality for them to see the result of that knowledge into actions, and not going to build the experience. So what can we do to help them to have that baby step of courageous to do something?
Yeah, we were just talking about this last night I'm part of a men's circle, and we were talking about the writing of James Hollis, and he was saying that knowledge is not enough. You also need courage and endurance.
Endurance.
Yeah. And so, yeah, when we learn something, that's just the beginning. It's the stepping off point. But to make a change requires the courage to leave what you already know, the courage to forge ahead into the unknown, the courage to meet whatever resistance is going to come at you.
Mm.
And then the more resistance we encounter, the more endurance we need, the more perseverance and tenacity we need to keep pushing to discover the truth, to reach the milestone, to achieve the goal and purpose, to have the freedom or the life that we are looking for. That's hard. In anything worth doing, there's going to be a ton of resistance and pushback and naysaying and doubting on our own, not only externally but also internally.
Mm.
There's a lot of doubt that comes up, or fear that comes up, or old programming that gets in the way. And so you're absolutely right. Courage and endurance are needed. And I don't. How do we foster that? I think maybe by keeping our eye on what's important.
Mm.
Like, I want this. I want to know this. I want to get past this. I want to achieve this. I want to be this way, and it's hard, but it's worth it because I know the flip side of this. I know if I continue this way, I'm not going to be happy, or I know if I keep doing it this way, I'm only going to achieve these results, and I would like different results. Not better, not more, just different.
Yeah.
Or better or more. But the point is that keeping the end goal in mind, keeping the end in mind, I think helps us to stay on track. And then having partners, somebody who can remind us when we fall off or when we get discouraged, having a mantra, having so I guess so many things that can help us stay on track when it's hard.
Beautiful. I want to bring you to your own life experience when you build a business. And I believe that there's a lot of people, for sure, will be a naysayer, be the one who injecting doubts and more problems to the existing one that you already have. And I don't want us to becoming part of that. Each of us will have our own journey. Then maybe I'm outsider. I don't understand your journey. I don't have the rights to, to put more pressure onto the existing situation that you already have. So what can we do to step ourselves back from other people's situations, and instead of giving them more problem, giving them the support, giving them the courage to the good things for them to continue exploring their path. David,
it's the weirdest thing how my wife and I used to laugh about this, that when my wife was pregnant with our kids, she would meet somebody in the grocery store, and the woman would say, "Oh, when is your baby coming? Oh, my baby's coming in so and so. Oh, that's amazing." And then they would launch into some terrible story about their childbirth. Like, they just needed to tell some story about how awful it was at the hospital, and the baby, was strangled, and it was terrible, and everybody was screaming and crying. And we think to us, why are you telling this to a woman who's about to have a baby? And there's so many instances of that. I think we just need to look at the other person and say, is the story that I'm about to tell worth telling? There's this great acronym in what I do for a living as an executive coach, which is WAIT. And WAIT stands for Why Am I Talking?
Wow. So that is space.
Yes, everybody should have a sticky note on their computer that says "wait," and just shut up for a second. Just yes, that's the space.
That's the space. Yeah.
Here's the thing that happens, and my reaction can be to do something helpful, or to do something harmful, or to do nothing at all. And the biggest predictor of what I'm going to do is the space that I allow myself to think about it. What can I do right now? What would be the highest good that I could do right now? And maybe it's to say nothing, or maybe it's to give that person a hug, or maybe it's to just say, wow, I hear you, or to tell a funny story, but not to do the thing that is going to create more harm or more burden or more load.
So, what can we do to build that space and give ourselves the ability to to keep that space widen longer and David, sorry,
Meditate,
meditate.
meditate, go to therapy, um, have fun, have a balanced life, get enough sleep and exercise.
Mm.
Instruct yourself, get educated on the things that you don't know about.
Mm.
um, have an open mind, slow down. That, like, we're joking about that acronym WAIT, but really, like, you could set a rule I could set a rule for myself that says, when I'm listening to somebody talk, I'm not going to talk for 10 seconds.
Mm.
Maybe 7, because 10 might be a little bit awkward. If I wait too long to talk, they're going to think maybe I had a heart attack or something. But but just wait a few seconds and think, what's the best thing I could do right now?
Ah.
Or if it's coming at you like somebody's attacking you, then maybe say to yourself, what do I need right now? Do I need to attack back? Do I need to say, excuse me? Do I need to say, I'm going to take a walk right now? Do I need to go have a drink of water? Because maybe the best thing you could do is not yell back. But until we ask ourselves, we're just doing the automatic thing.
David, you mentioned about slowing down, and it's really hard to slow down in this ever speedy world at the moment, and where organization is like more productive, faster, quicker, more result, and people cannot wait. Delivering has to be within 2 hours, within 30 minutes, within one day, and stuff like that. So it's now all the time, right? And the mentality of early birds get the worms. It's been been there for so long. So slowing down means we're gonna lose opportunities. Slowing down means we're gonna miss the bus. Slowing down means we're gonna miss the opportunity to be promoted and stuff like that. So how can we cultivate that slowing down mentality and principle into our lives to make sure that we have enough time to absorb the information and build the wisdom for our world?
Yeah. So, well, I guess there's a couple things that come to mind. One is that going faster may seem on the surface to be the better solution for more gain, but there's a lot of collateral damage that's possible when you go fast, because when you go fast, you may be reckless. You may be insensitive to what your team is capable of, what your children are capable of, what your spouse is capable of, and you end up causing more damage than good in the long term. Which reminds me of that that saying, if you want to go fast, go alone, and if you want to go far, go together. That we want to just sprint, but then we get to the finish line and we're alone.
Yeah.
Nobody's with us. So how great is the celebration if you have nobody to celebrate with? So I think the idea of slowing down is actually not slowing down like I'm so slow that I miss every opportunity in my life, but slow down like I think about these opportunities for a second to make sure that this is actually what I want. I'm sure you've met lots of people, I certainly have, who worked only to get to a place where they could look around and say, look, I made it. And then they say, am I happy? No. I made it to the top of the mountain, but it's not the mountain I want to be on.
Yeah.
So maybe slow down to like look at the path a little bit.
So you mentioned about you go fast, go alone, right? And then you will far go together. And that's another part you mentioned about fun also. And I want to go far together with somebody that bring fun and joy in my life. I don't want to go far together with somebody gonna bring, bad stories and bad experience in my life. That would become a very painful journey. So, so how can we select the pupil to our own journey that we can go far together, where we can celebrate together, we can bring fun, joy, and more experience, enrich experience to the lives of us and the people joining together, David?
In a professional context, my clients and I talk about this quite a bit, which is the notion of values. That people who are building a team often want to build that team full of the expertise that they don't have. So they say, I wanna find a marketing person who is the very best, most experienced marketing professional that I can afford. And so they go out and they find somebody who has a ton of experience, and they bring that person into the organization, only to find a few months later that they really don't like working with them. They very much appreciate the experience and the knowledge that they have, but they don't like them as a person. And that comes down to values. Does this person have the same values as I do? Do they represent the same important things in how they think and feel that I do? Doesn't mean they have to agree with me all the time, but at least in terms of how we respect people, how we honor people, how we show gratitude, how we respect each other in the work group, how we foster learning and development, whatever those things are, that they're like us. Or at least that we like the way they are. Maybe they're not totally like us. Maybe we're different. And one of the reasons that we hired them is because they are more that way than we are, but it's a good thing. So that brings up the notion of discriminating, of being discriminated. I don't mean discriminating like one person versus another, like pushing people out. I mean discriminating, like asking ourselves, is this the right person for me?
Yeah.
Do they have knowledge and wisdom that I want? But also, are they nice? Are they kind? Are they respectful? And like kids in middle school, my daughter is seeing this. There are kids that want to be popular. Yeah. And so they do things to be popular, but they do things that aren't very nice. Yeah. They can be fickle with each other. They can turn their backs on each other. They can not be good friends to each other. The same thing happens in the professional world, where people politic and they backstab and they're not kind, or they practice favoritism, or they're dishonest in their business dealings. Whatever those things are, those are values. Yeah. Those are their values on display for us. So one of the best ways for us to make sure that the people that are traveling with us to go far are worthy of that journey and are going to be the people we want to celebrate is to be discriminating about the values that we hold important, and to surround ourselves with people who are like us in those values.
So it means that for us to gain wisdom of this world, we first have to learn wisdom about ourselves, learn about ourselves, the value and stuff. And it's scary because I think a lot of people are also running as a rat at the moment, not having the values in their life, not knowing the life values also. So if they slow down to take a step to exploring what the values they truly hold to themselves, and figure it out for themselves, what is exercise for them to understand the real values that they want to pursue in their lives?
Sure. Well, I mean, there are many ways to do that, but one of the ways that I do it with my clients is to give them a list of values: integrity, honesty, creativity, beauty, justice, but 60 of them. And then I say, okay, choose the ones that sound good to you. And so they do. They circle the ones that are important to them. Maybe they circle 20 of them. And then I say, okay, now go back through that list and circle 10 of them. Or cross out the ones that seem kind of similar. and pick the one of the two that are very similar, pick the one that feels the most closest to what you actually hold as important to you.
Mm.
And then they do that, and then it's okay, now do it again and come down to 5. And if you come down to 5 values that really resonate for you, then those are the things that you would say yes to, and the opposite of those things are the things that you would say no to. If a situation came up and it was against those values, you would say no to it because you have the clarity of what's important to you.
Beautiful.
You would walk away from a situation because it's against your values. You would say no to that situation because it's against your values. You would terminate a friendship because they cross those values. I don't mean like black and white, like, okay, you make one mistake, you're done. But over time, you know, if you're clear on your values, which is a simple enough process, then you get to hold those as important to you.
Mm. You mentioned about, I have two last questions for this conversation. Okay, so you mentioned about the word overtime. So for David now, if you travel time to talk to the David in the 20s, okay, and you're explaining the word time to them, to yourself, what would you say about that definition of times and wisdom?
Hmm. Hmm. I guess I would say if you're open and you're curious, the time will be spent well.
Wow.
And if you live as a student, beginner's mind, if these things will become clear, and some things are not maybe not important right now, and they may be important later, and that those years of learning are just part of what everybody goes through. Everybody will spend time growing up. The question is what they do with that time, right? Because I could start at 20 and go to 50, and somebody next to me could go 20 to 50, but they're not curious or open. They just remember what they were learned, what they were taught by their parents, and they just keep that. And they don't travel, and they don't read, and they don't have movies, and they don't fall in love and break up and fall in love and do all the things. They have the experience that they had when they were 20 when they're 50. It's the same experience. But to gain information, to have courage and endurance and a beginner's mind, I think you fill those years so that you get to the place where you're wise.
So you fill the years with the knowledge and make it become an experience, right? The last question, and it's always our most favorite one, is about thinking, because you mentioned about the word think a lot in here, right? And I want to pick you again on the topic of thinking, because we believe that our thinking capability is crucial, but it's been diminishing for so many people because of so many noises out there, right? So over the years, David, what is your secret to expand your ability to think, to make your body of works becoming richer like this?
I think to honor my father, I would say that I'm at my best when I'm learning, and when I stop learning because I either think I've learned enough or because I'm being lazy, then my life seems to feel stuck. And so for me, I think that's the thing that makes thinking beneficial, is when we stay curious. Just as we started this conversation, you know, we have to stay curious. It keeps the mind engaged. It keeps our heart growing and expanding. It keeps, you know, because we think here too, that if we keep having these experiences, if we keep challenging ourselves to have open dialogue, if we keep the flap open where the heart gets to sing, then we're growing and we're reaching wisdom.
Beautiful, beautiful, David. It's been one of the most wonderful conversation I've been having so far on this topic, and thanks a lot for sharing, sharing your insights, sharing your story, sharing your point of views on the topic of wisdom and aging. And I would love to see you in January if and have a really good cup of coffee with you.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's do it for sure.
For sure.
Send me your dates when you know them.
Oh, absolutely, I will. And if you ever decided to travel to this part of the world with your family, now you have a friend here, a family here, okay?
I know that. I know that, and I thank you for that.
Thank you, David. Have a wonderful evening, and say hello to your family for me, please.
Thank you, and to yours.
Yes, thank
Bye,
you.
Hal. Thank you very much again. Bye.
Bye bye.